The owls. The owls aren't what they seem. Damn owls. Where are you coming from? Where are you coming from? Huh? Nah! That's a damn fine cup of coffee. I'm just waiting for my pie now. So, what's the reference? It has to be one of my all-time favorite shows ever made, and not just in like the horror, sci-fi, psychological category. It's just a wonderful, wonderful show. For those who might be a little bit younger, and for those even my age who maybe missed this, because it was quite easy to miss, the show is Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks. Now, this show is special to me for a few different reasons. A, it really brought me into more like the avant-garde directors. You know, you have your David. Me, not me. I didn't direct it. But you had David Frost and David Lynch both at the helm here. And my God, this was just a match made in heaven. If you don't know who they are, go look them up, okay? I'm not going to go through all their videography because they've done so much work, both by themselves and together. So, Twin Peaks, the other reason why this is kind of close to me is where I used to live in America when I was going to university there, wasn't far from where the shooting location was in Washington. So I lived in Oregon. If you don't know where Oregon is, it's just the state below Washington. And I actually went up and I went to the shooting location in the small town of Twin Peaks. And it was just wonderful to be able to walk around the town where they shot one of my favorite shows. Now, again, damn fine cup of coffee. If you don't know what the show is about, it's kind of hard to explain, to be honest, because this show is just kind of weird. It's kind of like the setup for X-Files. That's how I feel. Like this show came out first, then the X-Files came out a few years later, not a lot later. But I can definitely see there's a lot of things taken from Twin Peaks and brought into the X-Files, which I'm going to be talking about on my next episode. So this is kind of a two-parter. But anyway, what is Twin Peaks about? So the body of a teenager in high school, Laura Palmer, shows up at this lake. And the basic premise of this is Dale Cooper, the FBI agent, has to find out who killed her and why. But there is just so much more going on in this show. So he teams up with the local law enforcement, with Harry and the rest of the gang, Hawk, who I absolutely love. Hawk is one of those actors, Native American actor, you see in so many things. He became kind of the token Native American actor for many movies and TV shows in the late 80s to early 2000s. And they basically have to find out what happened. Now, Twin Peaks is meant to be this small, remote kind of town where, you know, everybody lives the ideal life. And slowly throughout the show, you're finding that this is not the case. All these people have these secrets. You have all these things going in the background that people aren't aware of and not talking about. So basically, like I said, the show is really basic on its premise. Somebody dies, you have to find the killer. Pretty simple. But it's all the small things that make this show so wonderful. The characters, the cast of characters in this show is just great. I mean, just simply amazing. There's such a variety of different kind of characters in this. It makes it such a compelling watch that you just want to see everybody's story and how are they involved or what's going on in their lives. And you can't say that about many shows, because many shows that have like a few characters that you really enjoy, some characters you're like about, and some you just don't like. In this one, even the ones you don't like, you really want to learn about. And that's what makes this show so enjoyable to watch, because it makes you just want to find out more and what's going on with everybody's life and how they fit into this puzzle. Now, you might be thinking, like, how is this a horror show? And I think for people who've seen it, they might be thinking the same thing. Now, I do classify this as a kind of a horror TV show, because there's some really scary moments, especially the moments where Bob comes up. I'm not going to be talking about Bob that much because that kind of gives away some of the storyline there. But the moments with Bob and his creepiness is really freaky. And then you start getting into like the red room, the white room, the black room, and then it gets really, really creepy. This is more along the lines of like kind of like psychological and spiritual horror. So I made comparisons with the X-Files just before. Well, X-Files is more about aliens and more like sci-fi. This is more about kind of like spirits, and they kind of have an overlap on that. And if you think I'm joking, I'm not really, because they even made a comic book. Now, it came out after the X-Files 2014, but they made an X-Files comic book called X-Files Year Zero, where Mulder and Scully actually go to Twin Peaks and they sit in the Double R diner and ordering coffee. Now, you don't get to meet Dale, the detective, but he is referenced in it. So one website said, oh, this just proves that they're part of the same universe. No, it doesn't, because it was written, almost 20 years after the show came out. It's just someone who did some fan work, I think. But that's not where the kind of connection ends. Many of the cast, at least I think it's like 12 or 13 people from the cast of Twin Peaks, end up making appearances in the X-Files. And vice versa, David Duchovny shows up in Twin Peaks, not as Mulder, but he plays another FBI agent. So there is a kind of connection, but it's not just like the actors, it's just the overall feel of the shows quite kind of sync up. So I know I didn't tell you much about the storyline, and the reason for that, like I said, I don't want to give anything away because there's so many nuances in the show. Anything I accidentally say could give away the surprises that happen in each episode. Now, not every episode ends on a cliffhanger. Some do, some don't. But even the ones that don't end on a specified cliffhanger, it keeps you hungry for more. You still want to watch more. And if you're partial to the kind of weird and strangeness of some movies and some TV shows, this offers a lot. Like I said, you've got the different rooms, you've got the whole characters, and the people in it are just kind of strange, they're kind of unique in their own special way. And for me, Dale Cooper is quite possibly the best detective written for screen ever. Just the way he goes about the case, the way the actor acts in it, it's just perfect. It actually reminds me of a series of books that came out after Twin Peaks, and I haven't been able to ask the authors this, but I still feel this is true. There's a series of books called the Pendergrass novels, and it's about Detective Pendergrass from the FBI. In many ways, I feel the character Pendergrass is based off the Dale Cooper character in just how he views the world, how he goes around solving the cases. It really fits the character in the book to the T. So I'd love to be able to ask the authors, was this an inspiration? So if by any chance you happen to be watching this, which I very much doubt it, please send me an email. I'd love to talk about it. So Twin Peaks. Again, I can't get enough of this show. This is not a show for people who want fast action stuff. There's not a lot of action. There's not a lot of gunplay. There's not a lot of just general jump scares or blood or gore in this show. But what it does offer is the psychological approach of something being scary. Like, just even when they're in the forest. Now, being in the forest itself shouldn't be that scary. But knowing what you know when you watch this show, like the owls or Bob or some of the other characters, it would make you scared to go out into the forest after watching this, especially at night. Again, it's like a small rustic rural town where everything's meant to be perfect. After watching this show, I did not want to go to a small town for a while because I was worried that something like this might happen to me. It deals a lot with spirits, like I said, that are often referenced in this. There is some talk about aliens with the Major in this as well, who, again, going back to X-Files, the Major also plays Scully's dad in the X-File, and while he's in the, he's a colonel in this, and I believe he's a colonel in the X-Files as well, so he's kind of reprising his role in many ways. Just instead of having a daughter in Like in X-Files, he has a son in this. You got people like the Log Lady, where the Log apparently is alive and can view things and talk, but can only talk to her so she can replay the messages. The detective, Del Cooper, gets visited by these kind of spirits or spectrums trying to guide him and help him. You got this one-armed man who's meant to be seen the face of God and turn from his evil side of killing with Bob to trying to hunt down Bob. I don't think I gave anything away there, but this show is, by all definition, a cult classic. Because when it was on, it did have its viewership. I mean, it had enough to have 2 full seasons. Well, kind of 3 seasons. I'll get into that in a minute. But then you ask people 10 years after the show came out, and they absolutely loved it. They didn't watch it when it came out, but then they found out about it after it got cancelled. So in terms of what you should call a cult classic, this is the definition of a cult classic. Now, I said there's 2 seasons, but kind of 3. So season 1 is like 8 episodes long, or 12. It's not very, very long. But season 2 has 24 episodes. Here's the thing, though, and this is why I kind of call it 3 seasons. Partway through season 2, it wraps up the complete story of season 1. Then you get another story coming in. So I kind of see that as another season. They kind of put seasons 2 and 3 and wrapped it underneath the title of season 2. Now, for fans of the show, we got a really big surprise back in 2014. Guess what? They're making new Twin Peaks. And they did. And I really hope that, much like Futurama, that is going to be picked up again, even if it's a few years later. I still want them to pick it up. It's one of those shows where, yeah, it kind of sucks because some of the cast is dead. Obviously, they've aged since the original show. But I still think with how the show is written and the kind of materials it works with, they could do something with that. Maybe they've gone into the future somehow through the White Lodge or something like that. There's enough material in the original seasons that they could easily explain how they've aged. I mean, you might not even need an explanation as well. They could just say, this is how many years later. It doesn't really matter. But I would be really, really interested to seeing both the Davids get back together again. Is that going to be likely? Probably not, due to illnesses, being busy, and scheduling conflicts. I don't see those two getting back together, and I feel that it would have to be those two again. Any other partnership, I don't think would work. So unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get a season 4, season 5, depending on how you look at it. Just watch the show. That's what I'm saying. It's weird, it's trippy. There are some parts that's a bit pretentious, I will admit that. But even those parts, they kind of make sense as well. Now, I see, and these are for the people who say, okay, maybe I'll watch the show, but let me go look at IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes and see how many stars it got. I'm a star whore. Don't do that. Because I find, after looking at many of the comments, is the people who negatively review the show just didn't understand the show. And that's all well and good. Maybe you wouldn't like the show because you don't understand it. You just don't get the point of the show. And I could understand why you wouldn't like the show. But you can't say the show is bad just because you don't understand it. That's your hang-up. That's not the show's hang-up. This show makes no apologies for what it is, and nor should it. This show is strange. This show will make you think a lot. This show goes up and down and left and right. When you think it's going to zig, it zags. And when you think it's going to zag, it zigs. That's the intention of this show. So please, just ignore those reviews. Like one reviewer said, well, the acting's bad. It's more like a soap opera. Well, A, the acting's really good. And B, if they actually paid attention, in the background of the show, there's another show going on the TV all the time, which is like one of those daytime TV opera shows. And the actors that are acting bad, according to this person, are the people who watch that show. It's basically them making their own version of the show that they're watching in the show. It was purposely done. So actually the acting is very good because they sell it very, very well. I just don't think those people understood that what was going on and the whole purpose of that. And that's why I said, look, there's going to be some movies and shows that I think are very good. There's going to be some that I think are very bad. Well, other people might think the ones that I think are good are bad, and the ones that I think are bad are good. We're all entitled to our opinion. What I will do, however, is explain thoroughly why I think something's good or why something is bad. And I won't just put this show's bad, blah, 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 just for the sake of it. And that's why I never trust websites like IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes or Screen Rant or anything like that, because often it's just people, like a movie I might like, they might not like it because they're too stupid to understand it. And they give no reason or recourse to why it's bad. So I never go by that. I just start watching a show. If I'm feeling it, I'm feeling it. Great, I'll watch it. If I'm not feeling it, I'll stop watching it. And then maybe later on, I'll try again because maybe I wasn't in the mood for it. If I'm still not doing it, I'll give a show or a movie 3 attempts. If it's still bad after 3, then I have justification to say why it's bad. And I will write down why it's bad. So for the love of God, this is just a general message for people over there. Stop basing on everything that you think you should watch or see or listen or do just on reviews. I know this is kind of weird me saying this because I'm reviewing it now, but I am explaining why this show is so damn good. I'm saying why you should watch this show. Not only is this show good, but this show really influenced many other shows later on. And I think likewise, this show probably got influence from something like The Twilight Zone, because I do feel this whole kind of weird kinship of Twilight Zone-ish feel to it as well. So, everything is based off something else at some point in time, right? But this show really did bring up the whole weird, strange, avant-garde kind of TV shows and movies. Because right after this show got aired, you started seeing a lot of other shows coming out that just became strange and weird. I would even go as far to say as something like Ren and Stimpy probably got some influence from this show. That very strange cartoon of the dog and the cat, if you've not seen that. My point is, if you want something fast-paced, lots of guns, lots of blood, maybe this is not for you. If you want something that's going to put chills down your spine and scare you in a way you're not expected to be scared, and want to follow a really interesting storyline, fantastic character, great plot development, just beautifully shot, even though it does look a little bit dated, it still looks beautiful. And you just want to have a show that you can get completely engrossed in and lose yourself in, well, having to think a lot at the same time, then this show is for you. Watch season 1. If by the end of season 1, you don't like it, you're probably not going to like season 2 or season 3. I'm just going to say that right now. But I do highly recommend, even if the first couple of episodes you don't like, try and get through that. It is a little bit slow going at first. It's like walking through treacle, but then you finally get free and you're liberated and you're there to enjoy the show. All right, so that's it for now. I need to find my way out of this weird room. Got people dancing and midgets and dead people and spirits around me. I think I need to get to someplace a little bit more normal. So I'm going to follow David Duchovny out of the show and go join him in his other show in the X-Files. Bye for now.
The legs bend both ways, to and fro. Watch out for the horse with no name. It will fly in the trees, like monkeys do with lemonade. These are the clues. Listen well.